Alright.
Okay, ready? Okay.
Oh wait, everybody's phone on silent?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, there's always one.
There's always that one guy.
Alright, it's on silent.
We've got the intro at least.
Alright.
Okay, we still recording?
Yeah.
Okay. What's going on, everybody? It's Brandon, and welcome back to another episode of Murata Media. And today we are doing another roundtable discussion. I got my buddies Jonah and Doug here with me, and we got our friend Shannon behind the camera helping us out with that. And today we're going to be doing a discussion of the ninth film from Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So guys, thanks for being here. I'm excited to do this again. We did this last time with Avengers Endgame. So, what did you guys think of this movie?
I thought it was fantastic.
I
would agree.
I pretty much thought the same thing. I loved it.
No, yeah, it truly was one of his best films, I believe. I think it's my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, but I think it was due to the subject material and me being a big fan of film and TV at that time. I think that's why it's my favorite, but it really is a well-made movie and a well-constructed story. And
Yes.
that's how I'm opening it.
Okay, I thought you were going to say some more.
No, I thought you guys were going to say it, and then we'd get into our points.
Yeah, well, Jonah, do you have anything to add?
It really was an opportunity for Tarantino to really show off his cinephile chops. You know, he loves that time period. He said that multiple times. And, you know, in the TV shows that he showed, in the movies that he showed, just in everything, it brought that era of filmmaking to life. I mean, we had a Bruce Lee cameo, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it really captures that essence, that feel of Hollywood.
No, yeah, it focused on how Hollywood was in the late 60s. And also how Hollywood was for a little bit in the 50s. Because it does focus on the old TV westerns. And when I was a kid, my dad would watch those. Because he grew up in the 70s, and so those were still on TV when he was a kid. But growing up and watching those with him, it was awesome to see on the big screen the old TV westerns portrayed as they were. Because Quentin Tarantino did lovingly recreate how those westerns were, especially at the beginning when they do the little commercial for the Leo's fake TV show in the movie The Bounty Law, and it has the old NBC logo.
Yeah,
there was a lot of love in that, and then how they incorporated old films into the thing, like Dean Martin's The Wrecking Crew, The Great Escape. And it also worked in another big part of the film making culture in the 60s, the spaghetti western, and that does play important to the plot later, so I don't want to get too into it till we discuss spoilers. But it did, I think this movie, again, did well encapsulating what the filmmaking culture and film itself was in that time period.
Absolutely. Easily, though, we can't talk about this movie without talking about its star-studded cast. I mean, This is a pretty phenomenal cast. I mean, you have Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, and guys in smaller roles like Al Pacino, Timothy Olyphant, Luke Perry, God rest his soul. And they all do an unbelievable job. But Margot Robbie was fantastic, but the stars of the show were easily Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt.
Oh, they were phenomenal.
They do an awesome job of playing off of each other, and that's one of the things that I love about Tarantino's films is that it doesn't feel like the actors are reading off a script. It feels like these are two actual people just having conversation. There happens to be a camera there.
His writing has always been like that. The conversations just feel so natural, and I don't know how he does it. All the movies I've seen of his, the writing just feels really, really natural. It doesn't, like you said, doesn't feel like they're reading off of the script.
No.
there's like a camaraderie between them. But going on to the performances, like I said, both of them were the best parts. But Leo was great because if you think about it, like he's playing an actor named Rick Dalton, and he's one of the the biggest star in Hollywood on the show Bounty Law.
Yeah.
He's playing a character, what was his name? Jake Cahill, I believe.
Yeah,
was the
Jake
character's
Cahill
name.
on Bounty Law was the character's name on the TV show.
He's basically playing all these different characters in one movie who all equal one character, and it truly is breathtaking. But we also can't not talk about this movie without bringing up Brad Pitt's performance, because I love the contrast between the two of them, because Leo is this washed up actor who's, he takes Hollywood really seriously, like it's all he knows, and Brad Pitt plays his stuntman Cliff Booth, who if Leo doesn't have work, then Brad Pitt doesn't have work. Yeah. And Brad Pitt realizes that Hollywood is just silly. He doesn't stupid. He doesn't care.
Frankly, his character doesn't care about Hollywood that much. He's focused on, helping his friend. And if he gets stunt work, he gets stunt work. And it's an interesting concept to watch those two contrasts play off through the whole movie, especially towards the end. But Brad Pitt was, I honestly think, the show stealer with how funny he was.
He had a lot.
Because he was so funny in this movie.
He showed off a lot of his comedic range. This is easily my favorite role of his since either Inglourious Bastards or the Ocean's 11 trilogy.
By far. He had a lot of really witty one-liners that I think we will all be saying to each other for years to come.
Yes.
We were quoting it as we were leaving the theater.
As we were leaving. It just lived on that much. But Quentin Tarantino, he's an unbelievable director. Like, he has a vision. But this movie, I think, is a little bit different than all his other ones because it doesn't really rely on that over-the-top action, and it's not a revenge story like a lot of his movies are. This is pretty much just a story about life and the way he remembers Hollywood. He's even gone on to compare this movie to Roma, which came out last year, as his memory piece, because Roma was Alfonso Cuarón's memory piece, and this is his, and I think that's a really apt comparison.
No, I do think that's a perfect comparison, because through this movie, and you see how he portrays Hollywood in the 60s. And it's not exactly how Hollywood was in the 60s, because we'll get into that at certain points, but it feels like it is, but it also feels like a dreamlike version of it. And I think that's the best part, is it's Hollywood in the 60s as it was, but also never was. And I think...
I would say that plays into the very title of the movie. Yeah. It's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the classic fairy tale opening.
That's equated to.
And that's a perfect way to describe it.
And with Tarantino directing it, you do see so much love for this era, as we talked about before. Like, with how they incorporated, the TV shows and the movies. But not just that, radio. Radio does play a big part of the movie, although it's just in the background. But there is a lot of love for old radio. And how Hollywood looked. Like, a set piece takes place at the Van Nuys Drive-In, which was a big thing back in that day of Hollywood. And you see a lot of famous Hollywood landmarks, how they don't look anymore. The Cinerama Dome, while in the movie for a split second, it looks how it used to. And you see, as I said before, Tarantino truly does love that age of Hollywood. So I think this is like his most perfectly crafted movie in his mind, because it meant so much to him.
Yeah. And I can speak to that too. I love any movie that tries to capture the feel of that decade. The Nice Guys or The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Those are two of my favorite films in the modern era, and I would easily put this film up there with those two, just in it brings that decade that we weren't alive for. It still brings it to life in a sense that it allows us kind of a sneak peek into the way that things used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something else that was great about this movie was the production design. Like you could tell, like so much love was put into just making Hollywood Boulevard and the area look like it took place in the 1960s.
Oh no, yeah.
I love that.
Interesting fact: Sharon Tate's sister gave the film her blessing and gave Margot Robbie the blessing, but to bring in the production design element, she gave Margot Robbie jewelry of Sharon Tate's, and it's used in the film.
That's pretty unbelievable. It's just weird to think about that Sharon Tate once wore the same jewelry that you're seeing on screen. It's really strange, but I love the scene with another attention to detail when Sharon Tate goes to watch her movie, The Wrecking Crew, starring Dean Martin. In the trailer, I thought they just recreated the scene. No, that's actual footage from the movie. That's the real Sharon Tate that you are watching on screen.
And there have been complaints from various media sources. Tarantino himself even had to combat some of these more narrow-minded questions, but people wondered why he didn't give Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate more speaking lines.
Yeah.
And there's even been claims that Margot Robbie as a character is useless in this film. And that is something I would completely refute. Totally disagree with.
I don't think
you
she
know,
was useless.
We were talking a little earlier about the contrast in this movie, and a contrast that we see very clearly in this movie is when Sharon Tate was tragically murdered.
Spoilers.
When Sharon Tate was tragically murdered, she was at the height, or
she was about to rise up to her stardom
of her career, and Quentin Tarantino uses that contrast of Sharon Tate watching herself on screen as what's his name, Dalton.
Rick Dalton slides
as Rick
out
Dalton
of his career.
Exactly is struggling with his decline.
Yeah, you have the story of Sharon Tate beginning her rise to stardom while you have Rick Dalton slide out of his.
Exactly.
And that's a perfect contrast, as we were talking with Rick and Cliff. You have Rick and Sharon, who coincidentally in the movie live next door to each other.
Literally, I was about to say.
And I don't know if any of you noticed this. Her house is higher on the hill than Rick's.
Dalton's. Yep.
Yeah.
Which
it's a nice
just
detail.
the symbolism there that just again points to his attention to detail and how much effort and love Quentin Tarantino put into making this film.
Yeah.
But this story is told through several unique ways, and one of those ways is through flashbacks. Mm-hmm. And there's one particular flashback that I loved. There's a scene when when Rick is he's shooting his scene, where he's about to shoot his scene, and Cliff drops him off. But before he goes, he says, "Hey, can you go to my house and fix the antenna?" Cliff goes there, and when he's fixing the antenna, it cuts away to a scene of him on set, and Kurt Russell appears, and where he, gets a stunt double job, and that's the entire scene with Bruce Lee. It's a great scene because it's hilarious. Mm-hmm. It's brilliantly directed because most of it's just one shot, and the stunt choreography is also really nice. But when that scene is over, we cut back to Cliff on the roof.
Yeah.
But you think that it went forward when really it went back, and that you didn't know that. And I was like, oh wow, that was a flashback the entire time.
That's classic Tarantino style though, is to play with time, and before we went and saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Brandon and I actually watched Pulp Fiction,
which is another movie kind of like this with how it plays with its time and its order of events.
Pulp Fiction was definitely, that one focused on being out of order. This movie, I wouldn't say it was out of order, but it
plays with time.
It does play with time in a really clever way, but yeah, for sure. And another great way it does move the story along is like when Rick is filming this scene for the show Lancer, which was actually a real television show that I came to find out after we watched the movie. There's, like you said earlier, there's parts when he screws up his lines and he's asking the crew, like, hold on, what's my line again? But you don't see the crew. The crew just appears off screen. He's looking off screen to the crew. And another great detail that they put in this scene is that when the camera is like moving with the scene, they go back to the start
as
of
if
it
to reset
as if they are resetting. And I thought that was a really, really nice
Well,
detail.
what another interesting thing you pointed out with the crew is once he starts to film that day, you don't see the crew again until they've cut on his final scene.
Until
like,
the scene's wrapped.
even when he's in his trailer after he messes up the lines and he's, ranting and raving and he has to walk back to set, you don't see any crew. You only see actors.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you still get that feeling like he's still playing the character. And it's interesting because when he's on the set of this TV show, he meets this little girl actor who apparently is supposed to be not officially, but is supposed to be Meryl Streep. As I heard Quentin Tarantino say in an interview, but they couldn't quite say it was Meryl Streep. But it's interesting because at the beginning, when he's shooting the TV show, he kind of isn't taking it seriously. He's kind of just like, he's accepted his fate as playing, the guest spot or the guest villain on these shows, and he's resigned until he talks to her, and she talks about how she likes to stay in character on set because it helps her just this little extra inch to be better. And you kind of see him like, okay, and then he's reading this book about a Bronco Buster and about how he, in his 20s, he could break any horse, but now he got hurt and he's not as good as he used to be, which is how Rick feels. And you can kind of see in that first scene he's trying, but he keeps messing up. But it's coincidental that his last scene on the show is with that little girl. And he delivers such a great performance in that scene. And it's a great payoff with that little arc with the two of them.
And then we get that really great moment when she says that was the greatest acting I've ever seen in my whole life, and then he proceeds to cry.
Yeah,
it was very,
which is great meme material.
It was very touching, and it was also hilarious at the same time.
Yeah.
For sure.
They nailed it both ways. Is there anything else you guys really loved about it that you would want to talk about?
Well, if we're talking about things that made us laugh hysterically, I have to talk about the ending. Because
Want to get to the ending now?
Yeah, I have to get, if we're talking about stuff that...
now.
Okay, well then you need to give it spoiler warning.
Well, obviously, if we're talking about the
warning.
ending, there's going to be spoilers. It should go without saying.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino has, like Inglourious Basterds, changed history in his movie. Because you go into this movie thinking about the Tate murders, because it is about the Tate murders in a way. And everything leads up to that infamous night. You have the Manson family members who go to the house, and it details Sharon Tate's day beforehand. And then they get to the house, and they are about to go into the house to murder them until Rick Dalton steps in, drunk, and calls them a bunch of hippies and screams at them that they only want to smoke dope in a secluded road and, gets them out of there. And when they go back to park the car so they can walk up, they change their plan and instead decide to kill Rick Dalton.
And their argument being that Rick Dalton is a part of the acting elite that taught them what it was like to murder.
Introduce them to violence.
Yeah, exactly.
They showed them to murder, so they believed they should murder them. And so there were 4 people in the car. One of them runs away, taking the car with them. So it's the 3 left who do commit the crime. And attempt. We'll get there. And so they go to Rick Dalton's house. Well, Cliff Booth was walking his dog when Rick was yelling at the kids, and he had taken an acid cigarette, and so he's higher than Senator Socks when they bust through the door. And in the movie, Rick has met these people, the members of the Manson family, because he went... Cliff, yeah. Cliff met the members of the Manson family who commit these murders because he went to the ranch that they were at. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's, as I said, he's higher than space itself. And he's having a good time. He's like, laughing at the gun, laughing. And then, the guy who plays, or Tex, he's about to kill Cliff, and then Cliff's dog just immediately...
You forgot an important detail.
Oh.
Because in the real life situation, Tex Watson, who was one of the people who killed Sharon Tate, when they broke into the house, he said, "I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's work." And Cliff can't... And a funny detail is Cliff can't remember his name, but he remembers who he is.
Yeah.
And when he asks him who he is, he says, "I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's work." And he responds with, "No, that's not it. It was something dumber."
Yeah, it's one of the funniest lines in the movie.
And something just I'd like to point out about this scene, it goes back to Tarantino's storytelling. When earlier in the movie we learn that Cliff has this great relationship with his dog, and in a scene that some might consider kind of just thrown in there, not really important, it shows that Cliff has trained his dog to wait for a signal to go for food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so later in the movie, when the Manson family breaks into the house, Cliff is getting ready to feed his dog. So his dog's prepped and ready to go.
And then Cliff does give the signal to go eat, but the dog goes and attacks Tex.
Mm-hmm.
And proceeds to attack the other girl.
Yeah, and
in fact, all of them.
Yeah, but Cliff throws a can of dog food at one of the girls and completely just shatters her nose. And
she is screaming,
bloody hysterically.
And then
after the dog
rips up the manhood of Tex, Cliff kills Tex with a curb stomp. And then the dog then goes and attacks the girl who got smashed in the face with a can of dog food, and then another girl tries to attack Cliff, but Cliff just brutally beats her head in with a phone, a table, a movie poster, the mantle of the fireplace, the coffee table, like just...
At this moment, you're also like, okay, there's that Tarantino.
Oh no, it's very Tarantino-esque violence, and
it is very grisly, very gritty.
Then the one girl, I don't remember her name.
Yeah,
she runs outside
and runs through the glass door and into Rick Dalton's pool. And this is where the movie, I consider it a jumping the shark moment. But it jumped the shark in a good way.
It jumped the shark so beautifully that everyone just...
Yeah, it jumped the shark with fireworks and rockets and everything.
Over a pool of alligators.
Yeah, because the girl falls in the pool and scares Rick Dalton. And she starts trying to shoot Rick Dalton.
She's grabbed Tex's gun at this point.
Yeah, and Rick Dalton, at the beginning of the movie, is talking about an old World War II film he's in called The 14 Fists of McCluskey, where he uses a flamethrower to kill Nazis.
With the famous line, "Did anyone order fried sauerkraut?"
Yeah. And so it talks about how he used it in the movie and he went through training. Well, it feels like a kind of a throwaway line at the beginning until Rick Dalton comes out of his tool shed with the flamethrower and proceeds to just torch this girl. And I mean, like, I'm talking like Call of Duty senseless flamethrowing torching. And I just remember crying laughing because it was so funny. But I think that was the funniest scene, was the end. With all the Quentin Tarantino-esque violence, but that flamethrower was like the cherry on the perfect sundae.
Yes,
it was.
I'm I'm pretty sure we were the only people in our theater laughing as hard as we were.
Oh, no, definitely.
110%,
Yes.
Definitely.
There were eyes on us. You could tell.
And I'm perfectly okay with it.
Yeah.
It's something you
I
had
think
to
it was-
laugh at.
I mean, yeah, I think it was with the flamethrower. Once the flamethrower comes out, I think it was purposefully supposed to be funny.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, because, like, you don't expect someone to use a flamethrower on a home invasion.
No. That's why it's so absurd,
Yeah.
and I love it. But after that,
It's
though,
like the Monty Python rule of home defense. If somebody's coming at you with a little revolver, use a giant flamethrower.
Why not?
Yeah.
You know?
But after that whole crazy sequence happens, we get the ending, which a lot of people were really conflicted on. But I actually thought it was pretty beautiful. In a
Oh,
way.
no, it's a beautiful ending.
You know, Cliff goes away into the ambulance because I'm sure he sustained some kind of injury.
Oh, no, he had a knife.
Oh,
in
yeah,
his
right. I
thigh
forgot about that.
For, like,
I
the
forgot
latter
about
part
that.
of the
I
fight.
totally forgot that he had that knife in there. But
Yeah.
he goes to the hospital, and Rick talks to, Jay Sebring, who's a good friend of Sharon Tate, and he's talking to him through the gate, and he tells him the whole situation. He even says, "I burnt one of them to a crisp."
Are they okay? Is everyone okay? Well, not the hippies, that's for sure.
But then after that, Sharon Tate checks down through the intercom if everything is all right, and they explain the whole situation to her, and Sharon Tate invites Rick Dalton into her house, and they talk, have drinks or something.
But it's a perfect ending because you have the obscene gestures the cameraman is making.
You didn't see, but there's some...
You can't prove it, it's not on camera.
But it's a perfect ending because you have the real life victim of of these murders with the fake victim of this attack, walking in to the house. But what I liked is that shot where Jay opens the gate and Rick walks in, and
kind of leading to a beginning.
That's what I'm saying. It's leading into Rick being welcomed back into the Hollywood elite.
Yes.
Someone
I know actually said something that put it best. Like, it was beautiful because also Sharon Tate got the ending that she deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Like she wasn't, because she was so young and full of life, and her life
literally she was 9 months pregnant when she was murdered.
and she was murdered tragically, and she never got to live her life to the fullest. And in this movie, she did, and it was very beautiful in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, like I said, some people were really conflicted on the ending. Because one of the main criticisms I've heard of this movie is that it's just slow, it meanders, it just chugs along.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I think it needs to be slow.
Yes.
I would agree. I would agree and disagree. I would agree in that when it's slow for a purpose.
Yes,
yeah,
it's slow because it's building up these characters through various situations that they're dealing with,
yeah.
that's one of Tarantino's staples in all of his films.
No, yeah. When we were talking about the Avengers, I'm bringing up the same point. It needed to be slow to let the characters breathe, and especially in these situations that we deal with in this movie, like Rick struggling with coming to grips being a washed-up actor, Cliff, just out there exploring life, or Sharon Tate rising to her stardom and enjoying what life she has. Mm-hmm. It needs to be slow in the moments that it has to be to show what the reality is for these characters.
Yes. And I would definitely agree. A lot of movies nowadays, the audience, and most audiences too, they're very much about, we want action, we want, immediate gratification, we have to have just explosions and all this stuff. Yeah. And Tarantino's not about that, to an extent. Tarantino does have a share of violence and things like that he's known for.
But he doesn't do it mindlessly.
No, there is a purpose for it.
Sometimes. Because the violence in here was pretty mindless, but I loved it. So go on.
But it also did serve a purpose.
It did, yes.
It is forgiven.
Yes.
I would agree in some parts with criticism about the second act, though. I've heard that some people think it meanders in some places, and I would agree to the extent that I feel like he could have tightened it just a little bit. Like, some scenes just drag on a little too much, but that criticism is so minuscule compared to the entire film that I'm more than happy to forgive.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with it because in the second act you have Rick focusing on doing this show and showing he wants to be a better actor than he's given credit for. You have Sharon Tate watching her star rise, being in the movie theater during the cleaning or the wrecking crew. And then you have Cliff Booth setting up the ending.
The interaction with the
Manson family because he goes and interacts with the Manson family at the ranch. So I think, yes, it is slow in certain parts, but I think it needs to be to allow this story to branch as it does with our three leads.
And I was never bored. I mean, yeah, there were scenes that did drag on a little bit. I was like, okay, we can move on to the next scene. But I never found myself, like, checking my watch, like, oh my god, when is this going to end?
No.
Some people have gone as far as to walk out of this movie. That's how polarizing it has been.
Well, we just talked about the ending, so now they know they're stupid.
Yeah. But no, I agree to an extent. I do think a lot of the criticism for this movie is wrong. Because the way they've talked about the lack of Sharon Tate in this film, Quentin Tarantino has brought up in his interview that she is supposed to be an angelic performance or an angelic presence. And you see that in this movie. There's not a bad word said about her in this movie.
No.
And there's not she's not given this, like, deeply unrooted flaw. She's made to be this caring, person, because
she even picks up a hitchhiker.
That's what I was about to bring up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Through the whole movie, there's two instances of this. There's Cliff picking up a hitchhiker who is part of the Manson family, but he's only doing it because
she's attractive.
She's attractive, and he thinks he could, do some stuff with her. Although it turns out she's not legal to do that stuff. Which is
he's not going to jail for some
which brings in one of the best lines in the movie. But Sharon Tate does offer this right to another hitchhiker for not for any reason, just out of the goodness of her heart. The way she talks to people in this movie, she's a caring. Like, even when she goes to ask for a ticket for the movie, because she's in the movie. Some people be like, oh, that's because she doesn't want to pay, or she thinks because she's in the movie, she can get it for free. When they bring up the Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which was considered not that good at the time, I believe, and how people, discredit her performance in that, she's happy to acknowledge that, even with the stigma, because her character in that movie is known to do dirty movies. She's happy to show appreciation to the fans of that movie at the theater. And so people maybe wanted Sharon Tate to be in it more. Maybe they wanted Margot Robbie to have some more lines. But I think Sharon Tate was perfectly represented in this film.
So I think that we have covered just about every point that we wanted to make for our response to criticisms and things we just loved about this movie. So what would you guys rate it?
I would say it's easily one of my favorite movies of the year so far. I would rate it a 9 out of 10.
I agree. It's easily one of my favorite movies of the year. I saw it twice in 2 days, so I will agree. I think 9 out of 10.
I would also have to give it a 9 out of 10. Unlike you guys, I truly believe this is my favorite movie of the year thus far. And it was Endgame for a while. I mean, I love Endgame, but this one I think I just enjoyed so much more, and I think it's even up for debate. Once I watch this movie again, I think it could be a 10, but we'll see on that. We will see. But I think we can all agree that once this movie comes out on Blu-ray, that we will be purchasing it.
Oh yeah,
I am absolutely going to buy this movie once it comes out on Blu-ray. But other than that, I thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this roundtable. We'll be doing another one soon for, what would that be? For Star Wars, you think?
The Rise of Skywalker.
I just would like to point out that the table's a rectangle.
Well, yeah, but I'm fat, so I make the round of the table.
There we go.
Okay. That's also true. But The Rise of Skywalker?
See you at the Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
Because no one's ever really gone.
Nobody. Well, Doug's leaving. But we'll see you guys next time.
And now it's back to square table.
That's the ending right there.
Yes. And then when it's in the